here in New York. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Last but certainly not least, Austin, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? My name is Austin Scott. I am a theater and film actor. Most recently, I was in the original Broadway cast of Girl from the North Country, which is what I was doing right when the shutdown occurred. And before that, I played Alexander Hamilton in Hamilton for 2 years, one on Broadway and one on the First National Tour. I also was recently seen in Pose on FX. I was playing the character of Adrian, which that just started streaming season 2. And before that, I kind of just did, a bunch of regional productions, some other pre-Broadway workshops, some little TV things here and there. I grew up in the Bay Area. It's another shout out 707. I don't know if anybody's watching. What's that? I grew up in the Bay Area, Northern California. I then moved to LA, kind of like Kristen. I stayed there for about 3 years, doing TV and film, doing some theater in pre-development, which eventually took me to do my first off-Broadway show, which was called One Day the Musical, and that's what brought me to New York. And a fun fact that I'd like to share, just because with what we're talking about, the way I met Danielle is we did Car Wash in a workshop of like a pre-Broadway workshop of a show called Car Wash in LA. And that was one of the only times that I've been in a production that was basically Black from the top down. We had producers, writers, director, choreographer. The vast majority of the cast was Black. And so that was just such a dope experience. And I'm really excited to be here talking with her.
Awesome. I thank you all again. And outside of meeting Beyonce once, this is the most famous I've ever got connected to folks. So don't act like y'all don't know me after today's. But yeah, thank you all. And again, to everyone watching, I think what an honor and privilege to be in a conversation and a dialogue with such accomplished folks who many have come from the experiences and backgrounds that you all are now engaging in high school. And we hope that today you really get the chance to kind of challenge yourself and really think deeply about the experience of Black identified folks in entertainment and in theater and in artistry. And really, again, hear from their stories and take away something. So we're going to jump right into these questions here. And again, just to remind my colleague panelists, there's a question and you feel like one of our other brothers or sisters answers it and you want to jump in on it or you have questions, this is more of a dialogue. So don't feel to let the structure kind of be as flexible as possible as well too, okay? And so first question I want to pitch to you all as, the United States is currently in a very interesting and challenging point of its history. We're currently experiencing a conflict of foundational values, which are impacting the idea that our society is built on the idea of equity and equality. We've seen this displayed in reference to the impacts that the coronavirus or COVID-19 has had disproportionately on the Black community. And with the increasing attention of racially charged killings of Black people by law enforcement and other systems of power, we're seeing a very interesting time around race in our country right now. Given all that's going on now, what are your current feelings and thoughts about our society regarding racism? And what do you think are the key issues impacting the actor theater community during this time?
I can go first. I feel, first of all, I feel it's long overdue that, there should have been attention brought to this area of systemic racism a long time ago. I mean, of course, we've gone through different eras in our country's history, the civil rights movement and all that. And then after that, it almost seems like we were kind of all lulled to sleep, thinking that, because Martin Luther King had a dream and certain things changed, we were given the right to vote, it was like, oh, well, you guys got something and it's fine, there's no racism. I mean, there's a Black president, look how far we've come,
Right.
When the truth of the matter is, it's one of those situations where there's much more under the surface. And I think it took a pandemic for there to actually be attention brought to it. I think if the pandemic had not occurred, we would still be living life the way we were. George Floyd would have been murdered and we would have been sad for a couple of days and angry for a few days, and we would have went on about our lives because it's something that we're used to seeing, unfortunately, and nothing really gets done. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that the world had to be shut down,
Right.
had to be shut down in order for people to really take a look. And it really shows you how deep seated it is in the fabric of our country, for it to take a pandemic for people to understand that Black Lives Matter and that our country has been sick since its inception.
Right.
So, and then as far as the entertainment and theater community, I mean, it's all wrapped up in one. Like, you can't have systemic racism in our country and it not affect the entertainment industry and the theater industry. Like, that's why it's such an ugly thing, because it's like the coronavirus. Like, it is a virus. It is a
Right.
virus.
Right.
And it doesn't just affect one part of you. Like, it affects every single aspect of our nation. And I'm devastated by the murders that we continue to see, but I'm also very grateful that we're in this place. And sometimes it takes the worst things to happen in order for the best change to take place.
Absolutely. A lot of folks have said that, that Black people in America have been navigating in a pandemic state. I mean, it's been a consistent and the thing I think about you all that's powerful about this conversation is you do represent success. I mean, you've been able to achieve some of your goals and aspirations, but that's not removed you from racialized experiences or racism. So thank you, Danielle, for that. Anybody else want to jump in on that question?
I've had two thoughts swirling in my head. They're like macros, but one of them is that we are such a young country.
Right.
I look at these European countries and they've been around for so long that they've been through like 4 or 5 or 6 revolutions.
Right.
They've been through monarchies that have come and gone, and revolts and overthrows. And I am just constantly reminding myself that we are a very young country. So this what's happening right now, I don't want to devalue the work that African Americans have been doing by saying that this is a new movement, because it's not.
Right.
This movement has been happening since this country was birthed. We had no desire to live enslaved.
Right.
So there was always a fight happening. We are in a moment right now, and I agree with Danielle, it took a pandemic, because Americans too, they're overworked. The fact that people are so out in the streets and it's because they have time. They have the time to do it now because a global pandemic has stopped us. So, and the other thought that's been swirling in my head is the fact that, what we're essentially asking is for everyone to be an activist of some sort.
Right.
We truly are.
Right.
And everybody has different roles in activism. And I've been watching a lot of documentaries about movements that had started. And one of the ones I watched was Black Panthers. And, the Black Panthers were necessary for that time because you need fire starters.
Right.
George Ford was a catalyst. So everyone plays a very specific role in it. And we are essentially asking a group of Americans who have been spoiled with accessibility and convenience to now not just fight when it's time to elect people, but also fight every day. So that's been in my head.
No, yeah. That's good. I appreciate that. Anybody, Cody, Austin, any thoughts?
Yeah, jumping in on that. Excuse me, I had some internet problems, so forgive me if I speak on something that's already been said. But I think going off of that, we're at a very interesting moment right now, because the viral aspect of this current movement is kind of dying down right now. It's like your social media feeds are going back to normal. You see more cat pictures, all that kind of stuff. And I think now is really the most telling time where, it's kind of easy to lend your voice and to, post your Black squares and to, do what you like add your voice to the movement when everybody's doing it. But
Right.
now's the time when, as that starts to fade away, how are you going to continue to make anti-racism a part of your everyday life? How are you going to continue to show up and lend your voice to the fight? And I think the people that kind of just drop off, and because y'all have gotten a peek behind the curtain and you've seen the truth, and you can't really put the curtain back and pretend like it's not there, right? You can't unsee what you've seen. And so I think as the weeks go on and the months go on, and it's the people that are really able to continue to be allies and to prove that it wasn't just a moment in time because it was a viral, that they really are down for the movement. And I think that's what's going to be really telling us as we move forward, is just seeing who really steps up and continues, because this is weeks, months, years. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Right.
And even on a smaller level, just talking about the American theater, we're not going back to work for months. We still have time to engage in these conversations and to actually put plans in place to take down systemic racism in the American theater. Like, we have months until we go back to work, and we all know that. And like, they're not saying it a lot, but we all know that. So we have this time to affect change, and like Crystalline and Danielle and Austin said, like we don't, we've never been afforded this time before. So we have to ourselves, and we have to engage in other people to actually take action during this time,
Absolutely. One thing I want to pause and do before we move on is, I want to also thank everyone who's decided to log on today, because at some level you've decided to be part of this movement in this moment in history. There's a lot of other things that you could be doing with your time right now, but you found that this conversation on this day, at this point in history, was worth you participating. And there's, hundreds of people who are on this webinar right now. And so I encourage you, as you're hearing today, really think about what your role and your voice will be, and how you will use your craft to lead towards social change. Cody, you kind of went into the next question and started to talk about that. So I want to kind of jump into that. And so it's often been said that art imitates life. How can acting and theater be used to increase awareness and bring others along in understanding the idea of racial equity in our country?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I just yesterday I led this workshop for kids from ages 5 to 12, right? And it was basically just kind of like just engaging with them and talking about the theater, and the person who was moderating, brought up the big elephant in the room, because everyone's talking about, a lot of people are talking about systemic racism now, which I think is amazing. And she said, you've been very active on your social media, and, you spoke on CNN about this. Would you like to talk to these kids about what you've experienced and like what's going on? And it kind of threw me off because, you're thinking about kids that are 5, from age 5 to 12. And I don't know what conversations that, their parents have had with them. But I gently touched on the subject, and, in a broad sense, I tried to make it personal to like, just like a friend insulting a friend, and how like that is, not okay. Just trying to make it like start there. And then one of the little girls, I think she was probably 10, raised her hand. She said, I just watched a Sesame Street episode that dealt with systemic racism. And I didn't know that Sesame Street had a whole episode about it. But I think that's remarkable. You talk about life imitating art, like we can use art to educate people and to even empower people. Because then I asked her, I was like, so what did you take away from it? And then she basically was like, I took so much away from it, and my eyes, she's a little white girl, and she was like, I took so much away from it, and now I understand what people mean by being treated unfairly, And so I don't know if her mom or anybody had conversations with her, but because she watched Sesame Street, like now that is something that she has a better awareness of.
Absolutely. Austin, were you gonna? I think either Austin or Danielle.
I think Danielle jumped in first.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, as far as art imitating life, I think the beautiful thing about being an actor or, a musician or whatever it is, that, or at least for an actor, in order to bring these characters to life, you have to have empathy for your character. Like, in order for me to play a character that is completely well-rounded and a true depiction of someone you would know, is that I can't judge that character. I can't have in my head that I don't like her, because then I'm not going to give the performance that I could. And I think there's a lot of similarities between moving forward in this industry, understanding systemic racism and the things that we can do as people to dismantle it. If you just think about empathy, if you just think about, in order for me to be an actor, I have to be vulnerable, I have to have empathy, I have to be a person that's able to see the experience of someone else and take it on for myself. Right. And to me, there's no difference when it comes to this idea of equality, like love, acceptance. It's all the same thing. And I think the beautiful thing about being an artist, and the beautiful thing about being an artist is that we get the opportunity to touch people in an emotional place. And so the difference between activism and art and artistry to me is that activism causes affect, where people are taking actions to dismantle something. And then as an artist, you are causing an effect. So you're causing an effect on people's minds and hearts, and you're inspiring them in different ways. You're helping them see things differently. The example Cody just gave of the little girl who watched Sesame Street, you know, somebody on the street could have told her the exact same thing, but the fact that she saw it on that platform, artistry does something to the heart and to the mind that effects change. And you can take actions all day, but when we get to the root of it, I feel like racism, hate, and stuff is a heart issue. And the reason why I'm an artist, the reason why I love being an artist and using art to evoke change, is because it really can touch people in a deep way. That rules and legislation, even though we need that stuff for sure, but you know, just because, I mean, there's a rule that I can't run a red light, but it doesn't mean I don't want to. If I'm late, you know what I mean? If I'm late, I want to run that red light.
Right,
you know? But there's something. If somebody touches my heart, like, well, my kid was hit by a car because someone ran a red light, then I'm like, every time I get to that light, I'm gonna be like, I'm not running this red light. You know? So.
Absolutely.
And art, like you just said, art reflects life, right? And so it's like, in addition to changing the policy, we also have to change the culture. And I think you change the culture partly by like changing people's concepts of what's possible. So if you see, you know, up on the stage, or, you know, in TV and film, but we focus mostly on stage right now. If you see a predominantly white Broadway season with very few authentic BIPOC stories being portrayed on that stage, then if that's supposed to be a reflection of life or reflection of the real world, then what does that tell you about the real world if you buy into that, right? And so I think what we need in Broadway and regional theater and everywhere is we need more authentic stories being told by people of color, that were written by people of color, right? Because that's one of the biggest issues in the Broadway community and theater community in general, is that it's white from the top down. Almost every theater owner in New York is white. Almost every major producer is white. Almost every single casting director is white. The majority of, you know, writers are white. Like, it's just all the way down. And so I think, you know, to start to talk about like how we remedy that is we need to greenlight more projects that are written by Black artists. As theater goers, we have to support more of those, but they have to be greenlit first. And, you know, you need more things that are written by Black people and BIPOC artists, directed by BIPOC artists and acted by BIPOC artists, because when you have just Black artists on the stage, but they're being directed by a white person who doesn't understand that experience, and that director is trying to bring to life the writing of someone who also doesn't understand that experience, then how can the performance, or how can that be genuine, you know? So I think that's important. I think also, like with theater companies and regional theater companies, we see a lot of like, you know, mostly white season with one ethnic show mixed in to check the box, you know? I think just another thing that I've seen a lot of, and I think we have to work to start to dismantle and restructure from the top down.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the conversation around race and racism, they're sensitive topics in our country and in our lifetime. You know, one of the things I think that I'm still even reflecting on and grappling on is this kind of commercialization of the Black Lives Matter movement. And then all of a sudden, you know, there's this attention to something that's been going on for 401 years, you know, and it's historically been a risk for folks, particularly Black folks, to speak up and out against racism in different industries. And so, you know, one question I guess I have for you all is, what is the risk in using your voice or your artistry to speak out against the social issue? And in your opinion, what are those risks that come with that? And in addition to that, you know, have you ever used your platforms or your artistry to build awareness around social issues or racial inequities? And what was that experience, you know, like for you if you've done that before? Oh, that wasn't a.
I'll go. I keep not wanting to be first.
I know, like I'm waiting for that.
I saw Kristen house or something, so I was like, okay.
Right. I keep not wanting to be first. So listen, what is the acronym? IDGAF.
Okay. I got it.
All y'all high school students, y'all know what that is. Y'all use it. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Man, did we freeze?
Oh, she cut out for a minute.
Oh, it was getting deep.
I know. She's about to drop something big.
All right, Danielle's gonna come back to us in a second. Who wanted to hop in? I think somebody else was. So again, it was like, what are the risks and how have you used your platform maybe, or even thought about using your platform to speak about racial inequities and some of the things that you thought about or some experiences you had in doing it?
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, I know, especially when I was a younger actor, like just getting my start, I did not feel safe to speak out about anything, you know, and that led to a lot of like restoring it in my mind about, oh, well, that wasn't really about race, or it was something that I did wrong, or, you know, I can just let this go because even though I'm uncomfortable, it's probably my fault that I'm uncomfortable. So I'm like, I restored that a lot. And I think that there's a real fear when you're just starting out of the repercussions of speaking out, right? Of being called too difficult to work with, to, you know, whatever, aggressive, not, you know, and I think that's a real thing, especially for young theater artists. And I think even just continuing, whenever you walk into a space that is all white and you're the only person of color there, or, you know, you're one of two or three, you don't feel like you have that somebody has your back. You know, you don't feel safe to speak up about it. So I know that's a very real thing. And with regards to like using my platform, I really think before a lot of this happened, I don't think I used my platform enough, largely out of that same fear of just like, you know, the repercussions and all of that. And I think I've been emboldened now to just start speaking out more, and to, you know, every day I'm trying to post resources and educational resources and, you know, organizations that need funding, and you know, sharing my own thoughts and my own experiences, just in the hope of letting people know that they're not alone, and also just shining a light on this thing that I think people don't want to talk about, because we've got this whole idea of colorblind, you know, and diversity on Broadway and all of this stuff, which is kind of
Right.
So, sorry, I don't know what happened to my thing.
But you're back now, so go ahead. You
went away.
Anyway, nuggets. Go for it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, her parents didn't want the play to go on. They thought it was inappropriate. They didn't understand what the message of the play was. So the theater department decided they weren't going to advertise the play. And so I went in there and was like, please give me the flyers so I can go around our campus and post them, you know, so that our play can be given an opportunity just like the rest of them are, you know. And so my dean talked to the director, who was a Black female, and was like, Danielle's being belligerent. I was not being belligerent at all. I was literally just asking for the flyers. But, you know, in situations like that, yeah, it hurts. It hurts to stick up for yourself and then be accused of being something that you're not. And then on the flip side, so I've been very vocal when it comes to that kind of stuff, where I feel like, you know, there's a lack of justice, or, you know, things like that. But then I think where I have a hard time is when it's personal toward me, where I'm in the room and I'm with, some of my white co-stars or something, and they make a comment that is racist or is whack. Like, and I might kind of check them, but I don't check them like I should, and because I'm nervous, or I'm like, oh, we all got to keep working together, and I don't want to make things awkward, they rapping, doing rap lyrics and saying the N-word when they say their rap lyrics, and then I don't say anything, I laugh it off, and then it bothers me the rest of the day, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta say something. So the next day I come back and I'm like, yo, you can't say that, like, but it's hard because you're trying to have rapport with your castmates and not be the angry Black woman, some of those stereotypes that are put on us. And then the second part is I have used my platform a lot when it comes to speaking out for racial injustice. I do a thing called More Than a Hashtag, and I started it when Michael Brown was murdered, and it was basically a night of art and community, the community and artists coming together to talk about what's happening in our society, in our communities. And so I would have a lot of different artists perform and talk about how they feel about it through their art. And then we would have like a panel discussion, and where the community could ask questions, and we would have a dialogue about it. And so I've done it 3 times. They've all been a little different. And this time, because of, COVID or whatever, I'm working on a way to do it, but not via Zoom, because I'm tired of Zoom, but putting something together.
When you find something else new, you let me know, okay?
But yeah, so yeah, I definitely use Vine, and I will continue to use it. And honestly, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. So I'm still looking for opportunities to make this an everyday thing that I'm doing, and not get wrapped up, in my small bubble, in my world.
Yeah, I really think about, and I'm gonna, if somebody else wants to jump in just a second, you can. I'd also invite you to. But when I think about it, just listening to both of your stories and the fact that, you're not able to just solely focus on your artistry. You're also having to focus on how you're navigating assumptions, stereotypes, bias, systems, culture, for the sake of your livelihood, for the sake of your career, sometimes having to eat crow and not, call folks to the carpet. And so, I just want folks who are watching in to recognize that, these amazing professionals and industry professionals that are doing amazing work, they're doing groundbreaking work, that are breaking barriers, that are winning awards, are also navigating systems of racial inequities that are also have impact on mental health, have impact on self-esteem, have impact on all these things. And so just understanding that the experience based off race can be very different for folks in all industries. So I thank you all for that. Kristen and Cody, I didn't know if you all wanted to add anything, or you?
Yeah, I'll say as a stage manager moving through the theater, it's interesting dealing with race because I've experienced a myriad of things, but also being the manager in the room and being a Black man in the room, I see it happen to actors time and time again. And in return, a lot of times they come to me to help remedy the situation. And I'm happy to do that because I feel like it's something I'm passionate about, but it's not my job. You know what I mean? So not only do I have to do my job, I also have to act as an HR person and a mediator to diffuse a race situation, because most times Broadway shows, sometimes these regional shows, they don't have HR. So if it's not the company manager, it's the stage manager. So it always comes to our table, And I think that, and what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks is I've been engaging with general managers and the union, trying to figure out a way that we can put a system into place to where this doesn't fall on us, And so I don't know where that's going, but that's what I've been working towards, because we have to do better. We have to do more. And like I said before, we have the time to figure this out. So that's, and also, like, to answer your question about my platform, I think it's, when you've been given a platform, I think it's our duty to educate people if you have 1 follower or 15 or 5,000, you know what I mean? Just because
Right.
you don't know who you're gonna affect, you don't know who's gonna be listening. And I've been trying to encourage people to share their stories, to share, don't be afraid, because as Black people, at least for me, I felt like I've been constantly been asked to be silent. You know what I mean? I've been having to move through the world to silence myself in uncomfortable situations or whatever. And I think that, you know, enough's enough on that. Like Danielle said, IDGAF, like we gotta move through the world with that mentality and speak out and encourage others people to speak out and stand by them when they speak out. Because
Right.
that's what's hard too, you know?
Right. Well, I want to combine, because I want to make sure we also have enough time for questions. So I kind of want to put this one together. And I know, you know, one special thing, particularly about Cody, you participated in the International Thespians Festival before when you were in high school. And I also know that there are probably some Black folks in the entertainment, Black students in the entertainment or theater industry who really were excited to join today's conversation, to be in community with you all, just in a moment of solidarity, to see other people who look like them doing this work. And so one thing I'd want to ask you to think about, or any guidance that you would have in encouraging young brothers and sisters, and what advice would you offer Black students who may be experiencing racism or chilling environments in their high school or college experience? What advice or guidance would you have them to help lift them up during their difficult or challenging times?
I would say, you know, it's to try not to hold on to it. You know, we're gonna, these things happen, and you will probably encounter it more than once in your life. And as hard as it is, but try not to hold on to it, because when you hold on to something and then something happens again, and then something happens again, it gets very, very, very heavy to carry. And if you're carrying this and you're also trying to just smile or to just do your job, it's gonna get hard. So I don't even know how to tell you to do this, but find ways to not hold on to it. You know, talk to your friend, talk to the person who's making you feel this way, like engage in these uncomfortable conversations, because they have to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to, when you do enter into a place where, you know, you may feel like the other, you don't feel, you know, particularly supported, like finding, even if it's just one person that you know is a true ally that you can actually trust to go and to talk to, you know, when these things come up, is extremely helpful. I think, just like you said, Cody, because it gets really heavy when you try and just carry it or explain it away, or, you know, whatever. It doesn't really go away. It just goes down to the basement and gets stronger. So I think that's something that I found helpful, at least finding some sort of support network, even when there's not a lot to be found.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm hearing everyone talk about it, and I think the biggest thing, I think the overall thing that we're all saying is, like, take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your mental health is very, very important, and it's already at a disadvantage as a Black person in America. So if you need to ask your parents to set you up with a Black therapist, like, I'm sure that, you know, the thespians will help find resources, but take care of your mental health. Write these things down when they happen. Get them out of your body. Put them out of your body, put them onto a piece of paper. Copy that piece of paper, burn one copy. You know what I mean? Like, find ways to, one, have your stories recorded, because I think at this point we have my brother said something very interesting. He's in the military, and he was saying, Christy, one of the things that we have gained in this moment in the movement is the ability to call out racism. He said, because it is no longer appropriate to be racist in polite society. Right. Like, that is one of the things that we have finally gained. So write your stories down, because once everything starts to reopen, once theaters start to reopen, you know, movements like this have policymakers working behind the scenes. There are meetings happening that I'm sure we have no idea about. And I think it's going to affect not just Broadway or off Broadway, New York. I think it's going to ripple effect into regional theaters and community theaters. So, one of the things that you can take heart in is that I think at some point soon, within the next 3 to 4 years, we will all be a collective. Like, we will have each other's backs. It's going to be a larger group of people that, white theater is going to have to deal with if something goes down at a regional house in Illinois. You know what I mean? Did I say that word right? Illinois? I said Illinois. Anyway, I always say that state wrong, but
That's how I say it too. It's all right.
So, mental health, one, and then two, start writing these stories down and collecting them. And if you have conversations with people and confrontations with, directors of theaters, and you're in meetings about stuff that happened, record those meetings. Have a paper trail of this stuff, because these stories are useful. Your stories are useful, small, big, whatever they are. They're going to be useful.
Yeah, I think what Kristen said was right on point. I was going to say therapy for sure. And also just the understanding that, like, you are enough, you belong where you
Absolutely.
are. What you have to give is important and phenomenal. And if it's not appreciated, you can take it somewhere else. Like we have to empower ourselves to know that we don't just have to take what we're given. And I think you guys are going to be in a great position, a better position than I was when I was in high school and college, to be able to have that knowing that, like, I'm dope, and you're lucky to have me to be a part of what you're doing. So I'm not afraid to stand up for myself, because I think I'm going to lose my job, or I think I'm going to lose this opportunity that they only give to one token Black girl or one token Black guy. So I better hold on to it and just, grit and bear it, because I'm going to lose out on whatever. Like, I think the tide is turning, and there is a shift to where, you guys are going to be able to be, we're all going to be able to be a little bit more empowered in ourselves, and be able to, like I said, call out things when they're not right, and not walking in fear, not having to perform with a backdrop of fear of not being enough, of not having opportunity, of being blackballed, and just respect yourself. I think if we really learn how to respect ourselves deeply, then we're able to have the confidence that even if we do lose an opportunity, because sometimes that does happen, we'll be okay, and another one will come.
Yeah.
And there are other people out here who are fighting for you and fighting with you, and you're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is the season of, I'm saying this is the season of restoration in Black solidarity. So I think, I appreciate all of your comments, because I think what I'm trying to focus on and tell the youth in my family to focus on is you're going to have a strong sense of owning our Blackness in a way that you may have never seen or experienced before. And I think it's, in the midst of all of this trauma that we're seeing, that's an opportunity for us to kind of build a next generation of strong-willed and holistic Black folks and Black youth. So thank you all for that. Time flies when you're having fun. So we are going to, it's come to the point in time we're going to open up questions. And so I think that I was instructed to say, community that's watching, use the raise the hand function and ask your question, because I think the chat function is no longer working. And so let me see before, okay, so 7 folks have raised some 8, okay. So we're gonna do our best to get through. We have about 10 minutes. I know we started a little late, but we wanna make sure we honor the time. So we have about 10 minutes left before we end for this evening. So we're gonna try to get through as many questions as possible.
So Westerville, Summer Theater Enrichment.
Hello, my name is Matt Wolfe. I'm a theater teacher in Westerville, Ohio. Thank you for being here and talking to us. One of the things that I am trying to really put my attention towards is increasing the amount of Black voices. And in my curriculum, I can see that that's going to be an easy task. That's about me educating myself so that I can educate my students. But I come from a suburb in the middle of Ohio, and the reality of it is our my high school theater program is mostly white. And so, but we have this amazing diversity in the school. And so I guess I'm wondering from some of the panelists, your experience in high school, were you involved in theater in high school? Was it a welcoming? And is there something that teachers can do to I don't know. I know that one person isn't the speaker for everyone, but is there something that we can do to try to be more inclusive, not just by show, not just by casting, a Black face in a traditionally white role, but that we can be authentic and really start doing it. I just wonder sometimes if maybe people are trying too hard and then it counteracts. That was a lot, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your question. Anybody want to jump in there? Any thoughts?
I work for a program called Broadway for All here in New York City, and it specializes in inclusivity and inclusion. And one of the things that we, if we're talking about getting more Black people in your spaces, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, who have I hired? Who have I included in my management position that can be a resource for me? So, that's the first thing I would say to take a look at is in your theater department, is there a space where you can hire someone who is a person of color? Because they can send you to places where there are kids of color who need a place to go during the summer, who need a theater program, and engaging in the Black community at your school is also really important, and getting your Black teachers in on your theater program, because they are resources for you as well, because they probably have relationships with those students. And it's when we talk about inclusion in theater, we're also talking about education equity, because a lot of Black students don't come from homes that are artists or that have the money or the resources to support, buying their costumes and materials and taking them to all the camps. So you're also looking at a demographic of people who don't necessarily have the resources to jump into theater like that because their schools don't have the money. So it's about equipping yourself, and that means you might have to reach out to people that you don't necessarily know who are Black and form a relationship. Because it's not just about exploiting them and getting what you need from them. It's actually about forming a relationship between that community and your program. But I think it starts with your management and having and exercising inclusion in that position.
Absolutely. Great answer.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I didn't even realize theater was something for me. Like, I had never even seen a play. I didn't see a play until my senior year in high school. And the high school, and I went to a very mixed high school. So there was somebody from, there were people from every race, but in my head, theater was just not for me. Like, they were, even though it was a mixed high school, they were still doing plays that were predominantly white. Tom Jones, Les Mis, Bye Bye Birdie, so I think what Kristen is saying is essential. Like, those Black students that are at your school kind of have to know that this is a space that's welcoming for them, and that it's a space that will, highlight their stories where they're not feeling like they have to fit into something that is not who they are just to be a part of it. So yeah, I think what she's saying, like, reaching out to, they might not be in the theater department, but there's probably some really talented people of color that just don't realize that they even want to be a part of the theater department, until they're given some kind of opportunity, or it's said, hey, we're here, we're looking for you, like, come be a part of what we're doing,
Yeah. All right, let's try to hop in. Let's see. Hans, we got another question.
Hello, my name is Kiana Jones. I'm 17 and I'm currently a rising senior, and I just love all of you guys. This information has been so helpful to me and just inspiring me so much. Um, at my high school, it wasn't very welcoming to theater. And when I want to, I want to be an actor, and I thought I would just be, welcomed, but due to certain circumstances, my theater teacher is, I don't really want to say that word, but yeah, I don't feel very welcome there, and neither do my other friends. And actually, they have all dropped that program, and I am the only person of color left. And honestly, it's not really good for my health, the way she's actually talking to us, teaching us, and the way she's acting to us. So I feel like, because I do want to leave that program because it's not good for my mental health, but I will be doing acting in different other buildings and different outside of school. But I feel like if I drop it, is that like, I felt like, did I just give up? Or is that like a loss?
Kiana, thank you.
No, girl. No.
Go ahead. No, please. Y'all please answer, because this is
Wait,
why
first of all, I'm like, she needs to be reported.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whoever this teacher is needs to be
Period.
reported. Like, that's the first thing. She needs to be reported. If you're a teacher and you're racist, you need to be reported. I'm gonna say the word for you, sweetheart. She's racist and she
Thank
needs to
you.
be reported. And you are like, you are so right in trying to protect your mental health, your emotional health, and not putting yourself in a position, where you're being treated that way. So no, I don't think you're giving up, especially if you're seeking other opportunities to continue to grow as an artist. I say take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and you don't even want to learn acting from somebody like that. Like, that's not even the best environment for you to grow as an artist, So no, don't be ashamed of that. And I would say get out, but report her first.
And also, just to say, you just spoke out in front of hundreds of people. You are brave. You know what I mean? So that should not go unnoticed. You know what I mean? So you can report the person and move through your life, because you don't have to deal with that. And just know that you are brave, and I applaud you for that. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
But try to find somebody to support you in reporting her.
Yes.
It could be scary to feel like you have to take on the brunt of that.
Go ahead, Kiana.
Yeah, I've been very scared. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I've actually had one of my teachers actually try to help, but our school doesn't care. So I've talked to the principal, everyone, they just don't care. But it's my senior year, so I realized it's just gonna happen. I just have to. I've tried everything in my power, even my parents, my school doesn't really care. And it sucks because I used to look up to her, but I'm sorry, other people probably have questions. But I used to look up to her, but knowing that she's just really rude and really racist, I can't deal with that anymore. And I tried the best I could, and hopefully my friends that I've told to watch out for her, I hope they listen to me.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have time for one more, Hans, or are we out of?
We do. We can bring up one more. Hang on just a second here. Let's go. Ardan, go ahead.
Hello. Can't start the video. Okay. So the question I have is directly for Austin. So I had the privilege of seeing you in Hamilton, in Atlanta, at the Fox. And obviously the whole point of Hamilton is that it was so groundbreaking because it showed people of color playing these historically white figures. And obviously, even though that's the premise of the show, did you have any fear going into the show of playing a white historical figure?
I don't know if I'd say fear about the white historical figure, because I think, from the beginning we were given a lot of leeway to, kind of disregard that and make it our own. But I will say that even in a show, like Hamilton, or like many of the shows that appear to be extremely diverse, they can be on stage, but behind the scenes, oftentimes they're still not that diverse, right? Like Cody can speak to this as well. And so I think that's something that's, you know, important to keep in mind, that Hamilton was absolutely groundbreaking in the way that it revolutionized casting and everything like that. But I think that a lot of people took Hamilton and ran with it, right? And they were like, well, see, now there's Hamilton. So all you young actors of color, you know, you go out there and you have a show that you can be in, as if one show can make up for the other 99% of shows, you know, that we don't have a place in. So I just think that's important to keep in mind, that even with the shows that appear to be very diverse and, you know, that have actually taken big steps and made a lot of progress, even those shows, there's still work to be done.
Awesome, awesome. All right, I think that brings us to questions. I know there were a lot more, so, you know, I encourage you all to continue to engage in the panels this week and have some dialogue amongst yourself, and use the resources shared. Before we wrap up, I do want to provide the panelists one 30-second opportunity each, so we can stay close to time. If you have any kind of final thoughts or any guidance that you want to give those students who are interested in standing up against racism and being an ally and advocate within the industry, just what are some encouragement or some remarks or some advice that you would give them? Whoever wants to jump in there and go first.
I can go first, I guess. I just want to say that I think that it's all of our responsibility to make sure that the theater is as inclusive as it can be. We all have the power, as we've said all through this panel, we all have the power to affect change. Your voice is your power, so don't let anyone ever take that away from you. And also, I just want to, you know, because if I can empower with one person today, I will be happy. So I want to specifically talk to, you know, Black kids who are wanting to pursue a career in theater. You know, I want you to know that it's possible. Don't be discouraged by what's happening in the world. Don't be disheartened by this moment in time. Know that that if you're passionate to do this, that you should do it, and that your gift will make room for you. There is room for you, and we welcome you, and we are waiting for you. I know I probably went over 30 seconds, but, you know, I just want to say that I come from a single parent household, and you know, at 16, 17, I had no idea what Broadway was. I didn't even dream of coming to New York. You know, and financially it was hard at times, but you know, I went through college, I got to New York, and I would have never at that age dreamed of the things that I've accomplished in my life. I've got to collaborate with some of the best people in the biz. I've worked on numerous Broadway shows, and I fulfilled so many dreams. So I just want to say, you know, dream big. Don't ever stop chasing your dreams. And as cliche as it sounds, you are enough, right. Period. So I'll leave you with that. But
thank you, Cody. Thank you, Cody. Anybody else want to jump in there? Final remarks, guidance, advice, motivation?
Sure. I'll just say, as artists, just remember the opportunity that you have to shift hearts and shift minds with your talent, with your gifts. There is a place for you in this world. And I know for, you know, the aspiring, you know, theater artists and film and television artists who are allies, you are an essential part of the change that is going to come. So yeah, you might get some pushback. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of times when, you know, like Kristen was saying, this is our country is young. So honestly, this is a very exciting time for you guys. Like, take advantage of this time that you can be part of a revolution, like something that will shift the structure of America. Like, take on that opportunity and look to it with like, look at it as a gift to you, as an opportunity for you. And if you're an ally and you see some stuff that's happening that's not cool, like, just have enough faith to use your voice and speak up, and know that there's a place for you in the industry, and people that you should be working with are going to want to work with you. And those who have those kind of those who are racist, those who are misogynist, those, you know, who have those type of ideas, those aren't people you want to link up with anyway. Those aren't the type of people you want to create art with anyway. So at this time in your life, I think it's important. Here's a little bit of advice. Write a vision for your life. What kind of artist do you want to be? What kind of statements do you want to make? What kind of work do you want to do? What kind of projects do you want to be a part of? And when you write down that statement, that mission statement, or that vision you have for your career and your life, go back to it. When stuff gets hard, when you're in weird positions, go back to what is important to you about being an artist. And hopefully that will help guide the decisions that you make as an ally or as a person of color.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Kristen and Austin?
Yeah, I mean, just to double down on that, because you basically said everything I was going to say, which is, as a white artist, to be an ally, it's basically about like, you got to create this anti-racist ethos, right? And then you've got to take that with you in everything that you do. Again, I don't think we've really talked about anti-racist, but it's like, it's not enough just to be colorblind or to be non-racist. Like, you got to be actively anti-racist, right? So that, that means educating yourself. That means, yeah, when you see something happen, if you walk into a room and everybody's white except for one black person, speak on it. Hold the people in charge accountable for that, and say, why is this? Start to challenge racism and interrupt racism whenever you see it. Educate yourself on what a microaggression looks like, what a macroaggression looks like. Hopefully you know that, and just really start to speak up. And I think for the Black and the BIPOC artists coming up, I know it can be very easy to feel like there's not a place for you on Broadway or in the professional, theater world. I think we're told that our voices aren't commercially viable, right? Or our stories aren't commercially viable, or we can't be successful on our own, and that's just false. And there's a wave coming where we're going to change that. And so I just want to, again, really drive home what everyone has said of you are worthy, you are enough, you do belong, and change is coming.
Absolutely. Thank you. Kristen?
I think the theater is a sanctuary. And I think that it has the ability to reach the community in ways that even churches today don't. So consider yourselves vessels. You are a vessel for change and a vessel for progress. So to the Black kids, you guys are going to, I don't know what it's going to look like next year, but you get to dream big. You get to dream bigger than we've been dreaming. So keep dreaming big. And keep trusting yourself and reading, and find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a Black mentor that you can call, that you can learn under, who can give you things to read and research. It's valuable. For the allies, get comfortable with confrontation. And I don't mean screaming and yelling at people. I mean conducive confrontation, where you know how to sit down and listen to what people are saying and discern how to attack those specific things. You know what I mean? And that's about educating yourself. And it's also about self-care and mental health for you as well. And then I would just say for the adults, like, listen to the youth. They have an ability to mobilize in a way that like we just do not. So there is value in their energy and in their tenacity. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how things start to look with all of us working together.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I want to thank you all. Phenomenal conversation and dialogue. I learned a little something and really feel inspired myself. I would leave us to say, you heard a lot tonight. For those who heard Kiana's story, I want to kind of center her again in what she shared. I hope that there's 200 and plus people. There were 370 people on the conversation when she shared that. So there should be 370 some people working with her to be an ally and advocate and supporting her in that. I want to thank our panelists today for an excellent dialogue. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being authentic and vulnerable. And to all of you watching, just remember, you have to be the change you want to see in the world, okay? Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Have a great evening.